Rights are pretty awesome, right? 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 Right. At least the English colonists in America thought they were pretty awesome. It all started with a thing called the Magna Carta. You see, King John, the King of England, wanted to fight a war with France, but wars are expensive and he needed some money. So he asked the rich people in England, called the nobles, if they would give him some money. The problem was, everybody hated King John. He was a doo-doo head jerk. Yeah, I, Mr. Fitzpatrick, the teacher, just put doo-doo head jerk in my video. Well, it's true, he was. Anyway, the nobles wouldn't give their money to King John unless he agreed to give them some rights, like the right to have a trial with a jury and the right to say bad things about the government. King John really needed the money, so he signed a paper called the Magna Carta that gave the nobles the rights they wanted. Eventually, all English people, not just the nobles, got the rights in the Magna Carta. Maybe King John wasn't such a doo-doo head jerk after all. Much later, the English had another king named King James. Like King John, he too was a bad king, and everybody hated him. Even his dog. Okay, I made up the part about his dog, but it could be true. You don't know. Anyway, the people of England decided to get rid of King James and replace him with a new king and queen named William and Mary. The people of England were super excited because William and Mary were a great king and queen. It's like when you go to the store and you ask your mom, "Hey mom, can we buy this really delicious pudding?" Your mom is like, "Sure, why not?" And you're like, "Awesome!" It was just as exciting for the people of England. The people loved William and Mary so much because they gave the people of England even more rights. They made a list of rights called the English Bill of Rights that gave English people new rights that they never had before. And all English people, even the English people living in the American colonies, enjoyed the rights listed in the Magna Carta and the English Bill of Rights. To make things even better, the English government was kind of ignoring the colonies and allowing them to take care of themselves and make their own laws. This is called salutary neglect. And the colonists loved being free and making their own laws and not having England bossing them around. It was during this time of awesome salutary neglect that the American colonists decided that they needed to get more serious about religion. By this time, all the Puritans were long gone and dead. The American colonists felt that they had become less serious about religion as time went on. They felt ashamed that they were not as into church as their Puritan ancestors. So they decided to eat hamburgers until they exploded. Nah, just kidding. But what they did decide to do was to start something called the Great Awakening. During the Great Awakening in the 1700s, famous ministers traveled all over the American colonies preaching to colonists. Two of the most famous ministers were George Whitefield and Jonathan Edwards. These ministers told people that God was angry at them for not being serious enough about religion. They told people that God was just barely holding them up over the flames of hell, and if they didn't get serious about religion, that God was going to let them go. The people got all emotional and decided that they needed to get serious about religion, quick. At these religious meetings, called revival meetings, the preachers told people that they needed to do whatever they thought was right. They told people that their church ministers weren't always right. This was different from what these people had been taught in their own churches. They'd been taught that the church minister was always right, and that they should listen to their ministers because they had authority. A person who has authority is someone who is in charge. Ministers were in charge of the church. The traveling Great Awakening preachers, however, were telling people that they didn't need to listen to people in authority, like their church ministers. They told people that they should do whatever they believed was the right thing to do, even if it went against what their church ministers told them to do. People liked doing what they thought was right, and they got used to ignoring people in authority. All the colonists were happy. They didn't feel like they had to obey their ministers, and the English government was leaving them alone and letting them do their own thing. Then it all came to an end. The British had to fight a very expensive war to protect the American colonies from the French. The war was called the French and Indian War because the British had to fight against the French and their Indian friends in America. The British wanted the American colonists to help pay for the expensive war, so they began passing taxes and laws that the American colonists had to follow. All of a sudden, the British were passing laws and telling the American colonists what to do, but the Americans had learned from the Great Awakening not to listen to people in charge. Sadly, for the American colonists, salutary neglect came to a sudden end, and the colonists were angry. In conclusion, the Neo Geo Frisbee disc toy ended up in a tree. That tree right there.